Part 1, Chapter 7. Hamilton Bay Elementary was close to our apartment, in a neighborhood of grimy streets and factories, and bullies grew as tough there as the weeds that choked the cracks in the schoolyard pavement. Being small for my age, I was the perfect target. Larry Wildfang was in grade 8, bigger than most, and mean. Somewhere along the line, he had picked up the idea that he was clever. He and his crew hung around outside the school gate, blocking the sidewalk and forcing people to walk around them, smoking, hassling girls with dirty jokes or gestures. Every morning when I turned the corner onto Skeen Street, a ball of fear in the pit of my stomach, I hoped that when I got to the gate, they'd be preoccupied with someone else and not in the mood to give me trouble that day. There was nowhere to go for help. The teachers didn't have a clue what was going on under their noses, or didn't know what to do about it, or didn't care, which all amounted to the same thing. Besides, ratting on someone was something you just didn't do. When I had complained to my father, his solution was to stand up to them. Exactly how I was supposed to stand up to 4 or 5 guys, all bigger and older than me, and bursting with confidence, he didn't say. One day, not long after my mother's funeral, I plodded to school, sad and confused by her death. In a strange way, the hollowness she had left behind was a powerful presence that my father and I stepped around and didn't talk about. It was so strong and so real that it was almost physical, and it hurt, and it sapped away energy and eagerness, as if I was dragging an invisible weight behind me. That morning I was frightened because, since I had woken that morning, I couldn't remember her face. When I thought of her, I saw the funeral mask of a stranger, hair stiff and unnatural, skin tight and coated with powder, the not-asleep look of her closed eyes as she lay in her coffin. My mother had never used hairspray or makeup. I was terrified that, for the rest of my life, each time I thought of her, I would see only the rigid face that wasn't the real her. I heard the shouting even before I turned the corner. Wildfang and his gang were kicking a book back and forth like a deflated soccer ball, while Sam Greenberg stood by, clutching his violin to his chest. I was relieved that they were preoccupied with Sam. Maybe I could slip by unnoticed. I walked faster, skirted the knot of bodies and flashing feet, and made for the gate. "Hey, there's Mercer," I heard. "Are you a Jew too, Mercer?" A couple of guys, their feet scuffling on the pavement, left the game and cut me off. As the rest sauntered over and formed a circle around me, Sam snatched up his book and sprinted towards the school, his violin case banging against his legs as he ran. Larry pushed my chest. "Where do you think you're going, runt?" I kept my eyes on the asphalt between my shoes, lips pressed together. I felt rather than heard someone move in behind me. A favorite trick of Wildfang's bunch was to have Larry hold your attention while the other guy knelt behind you. Then with a shove, Wildfang would send you toppling back onto your head. I shuffled to the side, surprised that, for once, I wasn't scared. Each time the pack had come after me in the past, I had stood head down, unwilling to look Wildfang in the eye. I had waited with my heart pounding, the inside of my head echoing unmouthed words, "Please, please, let me go, leave me alone." Now the fear was absent. What could be greater than the dread I had carried with me since my father's shout had roused me from bed that morning? "I'm talking to you, runt," Wildfang snarled. And then something flared up inside me, and with my teeth clenched and my fist flying, I threw myself at him. Caught by surprise, Wildfang stumbled backwards and fell with me on top of him. My fist connected a few times before the pack hauled me off Larry, and began to kick and punch me, cursing and grunting with the effort. I rolled to the side, scrabbled to my feet, and launched myself at Wildfang again, hammering his chest a few times before he knocked me backwards with a punch to my face. "Hold the little bastard," he hissed. The others grabbed me from behind, pinning my arms. As Wildfang stepped forward, I aimed a kick at his crotch, missed, caught him in the knee. With a boxer's combination, he slugged me in the face and stomach. The hands released me and I fell to my knees, gasping. Surrounded, I forced myself to stand, eyes on Wildfang. By this time, a small crowd had gathered, but they stayed back, watching. "Fight! Fight!" someone shouted, but the others didn't take up the chant the way they normally would. I hurled myself at Wildfang again, swinging, my fist catching only air. He sidestepped, throwing out a leg, and I sprawled face first on the ground, hands forward to catch my fall. Laughter from the crowd. I got up once more, turned to face him. I spat blood, wiped my hands on my jeans to clear away the grit embedded in my palms. "Had enough, runt?" he said. This time, I landed one on his chin before he counterpunched and put me on the ground again. I got up, swung, missed, spun like a drunken dancer, and fell. A few more laughs from the onlookers, weaker this time. Once more, I hauled myself up, stood wobbling, gathering what little strength I had left. The guys in the pack began to sidle towards the schoolyard gate, as if avoiding a vicious dog. No sneers on their faces now. They looked almost embarrassed. "Stay down, you stupid prick," one of them said, "or he'll kill you." But Wildfang, unsure of what to do, moved with them, backing up across the schoolyard like a crayfish, muttering, "Quit it," pushing me away or tripping me every time I made another pathetic rush at him until one last kick in the gut put me down for good. I looked up to see Larry and his pack disappear behind the doors of the school, just as Mrs. Laurier came around a corner of the building. Limping and bleeding, I made my way back home. Once inside the apartment, I tossed my clothes into the laundry and took a hot bath, sitting in the stream, working out a story to tell my father when he got home. Later, I explained that a bunch of guys I didn't know had jumped me in the park near our apartment. He bought the lie, shaking his head and muttering as he examined my battered face, his eyes brimming with sadness, as if the beating had been his fault. I stood quietly, holding back my anger that he hadn't been there to help me, that he was never there. That wasn't my last fight, but no one bullied me again. Without planning it or even knowing what I'd been doing, I had learned my lesson. You had to stand up to them, to everyone. No matter what the odds, never show weakness. Always be willing to take them on, never give in. They had to know that it would cost them something, even if they won.